With the popularity of 2000 Mules and his new film Police State, I thought it would be worthwhile to take a look at the accuracy of the information provided by Dinesh D'Souza. Here we will revisit how Dinesh portrayed the events involving the attack on Paul Pelosi, as well as get an update at the end of this video as to the status of the court cases regarding 2000 Mules in the organization True the Vote. First, let's take a look at a synopsis of the Paul Pelosi incident from Dinesh, and then take a closer look at the facts and evidence.
Incident involving Paul Pelosi gets weirder and weirder. Who knows what was going on, how the two men ended up in their underpants. All of this would appear to imply that this might have been some kind of tryst, some kind of rendezvous that went sideways or went wrong. My advice to you is basically caveat emptor, let the buyer beware. Don't believe a word of it until we see the body cam, until we see the videotape.
How you doing?
How are you?
What's going on, man?
Everything's good.
Hi. Drop the hammer.
Nope. Hey.
What is going on right
I'm
now?
not getting any.
This is why you should never trust Dinesh D'Souza. Everything in this video was public knowledge with the exception of the body cam video that is shown to illustrate what was blatantly obvious to everyone except apparently Dinesh. So let's see why Dinesh wants you to believe that this assault on Paul Pelosi keeps getting weirder and weirder.
Incident involving Paul Pelosi gets weirder and weirder, and it's also an incident in which the facts appear to change.
No, the facts have not changed. Unconfirmed early reporting has changed and been corrected as the facts have come out. It is common for inaccurate reports to occur early on with events such as these, and you'll see how Dinesh continually conflates just a couple of erroneous news reports with official statements from the authorities, which have remained consistent throughout. But no, the facts have not changed.
Or at least the reporting of facts, both from the police and from the media, seem to alter based upon whether or not the facts fit a kind of given narrative.
Again, all statements from the police have remained consistent. Why you want to believe and perpetuate inaccurate reports by a couple of news outlets from just a few hours after the event? I'm not sure. Perhaps it fits your narrative.
Now, let's start with the facts as initially presented.
Okay, now these are facts again and not early reporting. Go on.
You have a guy who shows up to attack Paul Pelosi.
No, wrong. It was never even reported that DePape showed up to attack Paul Pelosi. He showed up to attack Nancy Pelosi. Actually, he wanted to put Nancy on some sort of trial where he would serve as judge and jury, and her punishment would depend on her responses to him. It was actually reported in court documents that DePape stated he came to have a little chat with his wife. I didn't really want to hurt him. However, in the narrative Dinesh is painting, they have to have known each other.
Evidently in his underwear. So not only is Paul Pelosi in his underwear, no surprise, it's his own house, it's 2 a.m, but the assailant is reportedly in his underwear. Wow.
No, none of this is true, and it has all been public knowledge by the time Dinesh made this, yet still he masquerades this as fact. The underwear story was inaccurate early reporting from a Fox affiliate reporter, Evan Cernofsky. Later the same day, he issued retractions as well as the story being updated on the website. The actual affidavit reads that, while officers were restraining DePape, Pelosi appeared to be unconscious on the ground. Officers removed a cell phone, cash, clipper cards, and an unidentified card from DePape's right shorts pocket. Right shorts pocket. He had shorts on. Even Glenn Beck, in all his conspiracy-weaving madness, accepts this.
Officers removed a cell phone, cash, clipper cards, and an unidentified card from DePape's right shorts pocket. So he wasn't in underpants. He was in shorts.
Then when the police show up, supposedly, the two men both have a hammer. Not one hammer, but 2 hammers.
This was also never even reported as such. The reporting was always that both men held a hammer. Here's the very first time the police chief held a press conference and the first time this was brought up.
Our officers observed Mr. Pelosi and the suspect both holding a hammer. The suspect pulled the hammer away from Mr. Pelosi and violently assaulted him with it.
Some, such as Dinesh, somehow misinterpreted this as they each had their own hammer, but that was simply not the case. They were both struggling over the same hammer.
And the assailant attacks Paul Pelosi Not before, he's not lying on the floor, but while the police are there. That's odd.
It is not odd if you read the affidavit. When DePape found out Nancy was not coming home for a few days, he decided he was going to stay and wait. According to a Mirandized recorded interview with DePape by San Francisco police, DePape stated that he was going to hold Nancy hostage and talk to her. If Nancy were to tell DePape the truth, he would let her go. And if she lied, he was going to break her kneecaps. DePape was certain that Nancy would not have told the truth. In the course of the interview, DePape articulated he viewed Nancy as the leader of the pack of lies told by the Democratic Party. DePape also later explained that by breaking Nancy's kneecaps, she would then have to be wheeled into Congress, which would show other members of Congress that there were consequences to actions. So, once the police arrived and DePape realized that he was not going to get Nancy, he had to try to injure Paul, to make an example of him instead of Nancy. This guy was on a mission. Court documents further note that DePape explained that he did not leave because, much like the American founding fathers with the British, he was fighting against tyranny without the option of surrender.
How did the police know to get there? Paul Pelosi made a phone call, and the phone call was, he said, from his bathroom. So according to Paul Pelosi, he went to the bathroom. He took a, quote, bathroom break from the assailant. He's under assault. He goes, hold on, I got to go to the bathroom. The guy lets him, evidently.
What is this, quote, bathroom break crap? Why are you so determined to have two guys in their underwear swinging hammers at each other? Again, what you neglect to tell your viewers is that DePape had decided he was staying for days to wait for Nancy. At this point, it is more of a kidnapping than an active assault.
Paul Pelosi says his phone was charging in the bathroom, and in the bathroom he's able to make a phone call. Now that makes no sense.
It all actually makes perfect sense thus far. You are the only one not making any sense by being intentionally ignorant of all available information in an attempt to hold on to your despicable gay tryst narrative.
But granted that maybe this happened that way, Paul Pelosi then tells the police, and we can hear this on the police recording, the police is summarizing what Paul Pelosi told him. And what he said is, the guy's name is David. He names him. And then he says he is, quote, a friend. Now, this is on the recording. You can go listen to it.
Yes, let's listen. This is the exchange by the officers as it happened. Keep in mind, this is how the 911 operator conveyed the information to the officers on the scene.
RP stated that there's a male in the home and that he's going to wait for his wife. RP stated that he doesn't know who the male is, but he advised that his name is David and that he is a friend. RP sounded somewhat confused.
Let's listen to that again.
RP stated that he doesn't know who the male is.
He states that he doesn't know who the male is, but his name is David and that he is a friend. He sounded confused. He knew David's name because he had been talking with the guy for some time now. And again, they were getting ready to sit down for a multi-day kidnapping while waiting for Nancy to get back into town. It is not surprising that names were exchanged. And the confusion is exactly the type of thing that can be expected in this situation, and is exactly why the 911 operator did such a good job at determining what was going on and what to do. Even Larry Elder accepts this portion of the story.
Now, there was some speculation that Paul Pelosi knew his attacker because he told the 911 dispatcher that the attacker's name is David, he's a friend, but apparently he was saying that because the man is mentally deranged, and the man knew he was on the phone talking to somebody, presumably even talking to 911, and he wanted the man not to be angry and not to attack Paul Pelosi even more than he already had or already intended to. So it's not true, apparently, that Paul Pelosi knew the attacker.
But of course, for whatever reason, not Dinesh.
And so put those facts together and ask, how does this square with the left and the media and the Democratic narrative that this is some kind of a violent Trumpster, a right-winger, a MAGA type who has been radicalized by MAGA rhetoric and is engaging in political violence? It doesn't square at all.
No, it doesn't. If you do not share with your audience the sworn affidavit by DePape or share DePape's motivations in his own words.
An important message for everyone in America. You're welcome. Freedom of liberty isn't dying. It's being killed systematically and deliberately.
Our country's going to hell. Our country's being destroyed. Together we will take on the ultra left-wing liars, losers, creeps, perverts, and freaks who are devouring the future.
The people killing it have names and addresses.
And we'll stand up to crazy Nancy Pelosi.
So I got their names and addresses so I could pay them a little visit and have a heart-to-heart chat about their bad behavior. The tree of liberty needs watering. You need men of valor, patriots willing to put their own lives on the line to stand in opposition to tyranny. I would also like to apologize. I want to apologize to everyone. I messed up. What I did was really bad. I'm so sorry I didn't get more of them. It's my own fault. No one else is to blame. I should have come better prepared. I spent all my time exposing government corruption online, only to have them silence my freedom of speech as quickly as they could.
And so it appears that having realized that the more plausible explanation given the facts I just outlined is that Paul Pelosi arranged a meeting with this guy.
Now Dinesh is even so bold as to suggest it is more plausible that Paul Pelosi arranged this meeting.
Paul Pelosi arranged a meeting with this guy. He knew him in any event. The guy shows up. Who knows what was going on, how the two men ended up in their underpants.
So he wasn't in underpants. He was in shorts.
But Paul Pelosi then calls the police, reveals the guy's name, so clearly he had some familiarity with him.
It's not true, apparently, that Paul Pelosi knew the attacker.
And so all of this would appear to imply that this might have been some kind of tryst, some kind of rendezvous that went sideways or went wrong.
No. This would appear to imply that Dinesh is once again intentionally misleading his audience.
Now, the San Francisco police have subsequently come out and tried to, quote, clear the matter up by introducing new facts.
No, the police just tried to clear the matter up, not by introducing new facts, but by simply repeating the facts.
So new fact number one is that no, there was a mistake, there was misreporting, and they both were not in their underwear. Only Paul Pelosi was. Number two, I think more significantly, Paul Pelosi supposedly did not know his attacker. But this fact number two is now problematic because there's a police recording in which Paul Pelosi reveals the guy's name is David, and the attacker turns out to be David DePape, age 42. So Pelosi clearly did know his name, and Pelosi also described him as a friend. Now, part of the reports I'm reading say that, well, Pelosi was just being unbelievably cunning. He tricked the assailant into allowing him to go to the bathroom. He was, in a sense, putting on the idea that the guy was a friend. But I'm thinking to myself, that doesn't make any sense because the man wasn't with Pelosi in the bathroom. Pelosi was alone. That's how he was able to make the phone call. He was not under any rhetorical pressure. It wasn't like the guy had a gun to his head or he was trying to appease the guy and talking to the police in his presence.
And the man knew he was on the phone talking to somebody, presumably even talking to 911, and he wanted the man not to be angry and not to attack Paul Pelosi even more than he already had or already intended to. So,
in which case he might describe the guy as a friend so as to reassure the guy. But no, quite clearly Pelosi was by himself volunteering that he knew the guy, knew his name, and that he was a friend. So how do you square that with the sort of new edited version of the facts that we're now getting?
So, should the police not have tried to clear up obvious misinformation conveyed by people such as Dinesh?
It looks to me like this is a cover-up job and that the San Francisco police, so sort of, let's call it, Pelosi's militia, are covering up for the most influential family in San Francisco, namely the Pelosis.
So Dinesh is now degrading the police department, which actually did a very good job at deciphering the situation and responding by calling them Pelosi's militia.
They release facts, and the facts are very incriminating toward Pelosi.
What?
Incriminating toward Pelosi.
Yes. Again, Dinesh is actually blaming a man in his 80s for being attacked with a hammer.
And so they go, it's time to revise the facts. It's time to come up with new facts so we can blame the guy who really needs to be blamed, who is, guess who? Trump. So evidently Trump, who's not on the scene, knows nothing about this, is dealing with other issues in Mar-a-Lago and elsewhere. He's the real culprit.
Why is this so funny? Particularly when DePape's motivations mirror the language used by Trump and MAGA. But I guess funny is what matters, as Donald Trump uses this incident in his speeches to this day to get a laugh from his crowd.
And we'll stand up to crazy Nancy Pelosi, who ruined San Francisco. How's her husband doing, by the way? Anybody know?
Nancy Pelosi is a traitor just like the rest of them.
And Trump was also all too happy to further this conspiracy himself.
How do you read what's happened in the Pelosi household in San Francisco over the weekend?
Wow, it's weird things going on in that household in the last couple of weeks. Probably you and I are better not talking about it, but it seems was broken from the inside to the out. And, it wasn't a break-in, it was a breakout.
Trump would even claim on multiple occasions that simply because there was glass outside of the house, that this means the glass was broken from the inside, and that it could not have possibly been broken by DePape to enter from the outside. Because we all know that glass only breaks in one direction.
And, it wasn't a break-in, it was a breakout. I don't know. You hear the same things I do.
Yeah, the 9/11 tape seems to suggest that that he knew the identity of the guy.
Yeah. It's a lot of bad stuff. I'm not a fan of Nancy Pelosi. The whole thing is crazy. I mean, if there's even a little bit of truth to what's being said, it was strange that the cops were standing there practically from the moment it all took place.
So you can see what's going on here. This is really what the left does. They come up with a narrative. It's aimed at obviously influencing the election. Look, just as we've been warning you about political violence coming from those domestic terrorists, here is a gruesome example of it. That doesn't fit. This doesn't match. This makes no sense. Okay, let's trot out some new facts. And of course, the media will obligingly amplify them to create a kind of new narrative. So this is a case where it's not that the narrative is developed from the facts, but the facts are constantly revised and changed to fit the narrative.
Talk about projection. Who is changing the facts to fit their narrative here?
My advice to you is basically caveat emptor, let the buyer beware. Don't believe a word of it until we see the body cam, until we see the videotape.
How you doing?
How are you?
What's going on, man?
Everything's good.
Hi. Drop the hammer.
Nope. Hey.
What is going on right now?
I'm not getting an answer on calls.
Bro.
So, for those of you who still think that Dinesh D'Souza, a man who pleaded guilty to campaign finance fraud, pardoned by Trump, and then premiered his now famous documentary 2000 Mules at Trump's Mar-a-Lago, has any credibility, let's take a quick look at how that film has aged. First off, it is odd that a documentary about ballot harvesting mules has only one single acting credit, an actor playing a mule. Why would you need an actor to play a mule? If you watch the film carefully, you will notice that despite claiming to have hundreds of hours of video, you never see the same person dropping off ballots more than once. Only at one point in the film did it seem that way due to the use of multiple camera angles on this mule actor. And why did they not have convincing video? Because it simply does not exist. Almost the entire film was based on information provided by the organization True the Vote.
The group that Dinesh D'Souza repeatedly cited in his documentary, The 2000 Mules, they admitted in court that they have no actual evidence of voter fraud in Georgia. In 2000 Mules, D'Souza showed a video of Andrews, and he's placing multiple envelopes in a ballot drop box. D'Souza, in the documentary, claims, this guy is doing something illegal. This is what's known as ballot harvesting. See how he's dropping off multiple ballots? So ballot harvesting is when you gather other people's ballots, you take them to a drop box. Ballot harvesters, true ballot harvesters, sometimes fill out the ballots themselves. They fill out other people's ballots. They can be stolen. They can be from elderly people who don't even realize that their ballot was taken. As it turns out, though, Andrews is married and he has 2 adult children who live with him. So he was saving everyone a trip to the drop box by mailing their ballots for them. That practice is perfectly legal. If someone lives in your home, you are allowed to drop off their ballot for them. So the Georgia Bureau of Investigation even looked into this. They looked into these allegations against Andrews. They said, guy did nothing wrong. No law was broken here. The Georgia State Election Board also investigated and dismissed multiple other cases who involved people who were accused of the same thing. They were also found to be dropping off ballots for their family members who live with them. So Andrews is even in the process of suing D'Souza right now for defamation because he received all kinds of hate, all kinds of threats because of this false portrayal of him in this documentary. D'Souza relied, as I said in the beginning, he relied heavily on so-called voter fraud information that was gathered by a right-wing group called True the Vote. That group was repeatedly cited in the film. The founder of True the Vote even appeared in this quote-unquote documentary, along with an investigator who made a bunch of bogus election fraud claims. That investigator is a man named Greg Phillips. He recently admitted to the Washington Post that a map that they showed, that they used in that film, was fake. Donald Trump even name-checked True the Vote when he was asked about the 2020 election. Donald Trump once said, quote, "If you look at True the Vote, they found millions of votes on camera, on government cameras where they were stuffing ballot boxes." The problem is, True the Vote has been in court over the past couple weeks. This is for a related matter, and they have been forced to admit they do not have evidence to back up their election fraud stories. In court over the last week, True the Vote's attorney had to concede that, we don't actually know the identity of this so-called source who says, I was part of this huge scheme, this source who supposedly communicated with them. They also admitted they have no documentation to back up their voter fraud allegations, including confidentiality agreements that they claimed existed. So in response to a subpoena, because this is what this was all about, this is why they've been in court, the state had subpoenaed this information that they said they had, all this evidence they said they had. So in response to the subpoena for evidence, True the Vote's attorney wrote, quote, "TTV has no such documents in its possession, custody, or control." This is exactly what happened in Arizona. True the Vote also made wild allegations of voter fraud and ballot stuffing in Arizona. So in 2022, the Arizona Attorney General asked True the Vote, give us evidence. Provide evidence to back up these claims. We will investigate. We'll get to the bottom of it. They never did. They never could. So since then, the Arizona Attorney General reached out to the FBI and the IRS and said, you need to investigate this group because True the Vote has been raking in the cash. They have raised a ton of money off of these election fraud fairy tales.
When it comes to Dinesh D'Souza, you should take his advice.
Caveat emptor, let the buyer beware. Don't believe a word of it.